Hello everyone, welcome to our winter series. We're going to be looking at Luke's Gospel. And as we enter into the Christmas season, it's good that we're looking at this particular Gospel as Luke provided a lot of details around the birth of Jesus. But before we get started, I want to ask you about your perspective when it comes to Jesus, the cross, the entire Gospel story. I mean, when you think about the cross, does it come across ever as God's solution to things not going as planned? Or do you ever hear pastors, teachers, etc., approach the message of the cross as a reaction to man's messing up God's plans? As if God had a better plan, but man messed it up, so God got everything back on track through the cross. And when you think about the Bible, you know, it's a book of two parts, really. You've got the Old Testament and the New Testament. I like what Chuck Missler used to say about the two Testaments. The New Testament is in the Old Testament concealed, and the Old Testament is in the New Testament revealed. So when you think about all the prophecies in the Old Testament that were fulfilled in the New Testament, it's apparent two things. One, that God is outside of time and knows all things before they happen. And two, that God is in the details. There's nothing general about God. Everything He does has a reason. And we'll get back to that in a second. Also, I've heard some authors, modern day preachers and such, discount the importance of the Old Testament, but I disagree strongly. Remember, God has a reason for everything He does. And to me, the Old Testament is like God's blueprints for the New Testament. The Old Testament is the blueprints, and the New Testament is the house that God is building. Can you imagine building a house without a set of blueprints? What would that house look like? Would it even be able to stand? You know, everything in the Old Testament points to the Messiah. The Old Testament is full of specific details about Yeshua, Jesus. He would be of a woman's seed, from the lineage of Abraham, Judah, David, born of a virgin in Bethlehem. He'd be a great light to the country of Israel and to the Gentiles. He'd be the glory of Israel, yet they would reject Him. They would pierce Him, beat Him, and whip Him. And even crucifixion itself can be seen in the Old Testament. God's blueprints. Did you know you can even find in the Old Testament the exact day that Jesus will be presenting Himself to Israel? And they missed it. No, the cross was not a reaction, it was predestined. And that word predestined can scare us as Baptists, but it's a word throughout the New Testament. And most of the time it's not speaking about individuals, it's talking about the gospel, God's house. So let's dive into this week's lesson. If the New Testament is the house God was planning to build in the Old Testament, then perhaps John the Baptist's ministry can be seen as the foundation that God was laying in preparation to build the house. Think about this. The Old Testament was written over a period of about 1,000 years or so by multiple authors. Then there was silence. About 500 years, 400 to 500 years of silence, and nothing was added to the Scripture. Nothing. You know, was the silence deafening? Then all of a sudden that silence is seemingly and abruptly interrupted by some amazing announcements. In the first chapter of Luke, you can see God moving from blueprints to plans, beginning the actual building as He starts by preparing John the Baptist's parents for an amazing answer to a long prayed prayer request that they had, to have a child. Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth were advanced in years and had no children, and Zechariah was a priest who served in the temple. In the Old Testament, you can see how the responsibilities of temple service rotated among the members of the descendants of Aaron. And now Zechariah was in the middle of his rotation. And not only that, but when it was time to offer incense in the inner temple on a particular day, Zechariah's name was drawn by chance. And when he went in to offer the incense, the angel Gabriel appears to him. So let's dive in and read Luke 1, verses 13 through 17, to hear Gabriel's message to Zechariah. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your petition has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will give him the name John. You will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth, for he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and he will drink no wine or liquor, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit while yet in his mother's womb. And he will turn many of the sons of Israel back to the Lord their God. It is he who will go as a forerunner before him in the spirit and the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and the disobedient to the attitude of the righteous, so as to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." So Zechariah went in to do his job as priest, and when he least expects it, his personal prayer gets answered, but in a powerful and mighty way, by the angel Gabriel. Zechariah would have known who Gabriel was already because of the prophet Daniel. Gabriel had visited Daniel over 500 years earlier with a message to him also about the Messiah. But think about this. Zechariah and Elizabeth's prayers for a child were answered, but it was not just so that they could be parents. There was a much greater purpose in the answer. Their child would turn the hearts of Israel back to God in preparation for their visit by the long-awaited Messiah. It reminds me of another story in the Bible, the story of Samuel. Samuel's mother had prayed earnestly for a child, and God answered her prayer. But the child Samuel served a much bigger plan than just to make Hannah a mom. Let's jump on into some discussion questions about this situation. Has God ever answered your prayer in a really big way that maybe even startled or scared you? Has God ever had bigger plans for His answer to your prayers than what you had expected? When you read stories in the Bible, do you ever read slow enough to allow yourself time to put yourself in the person's situation, to imagine how their experience must have felt to them? I do this frequently, and if you don't, start doing it. Read slower. Take it all in. Imagine the details that are not there but that must have occurred. Now, can you imagine how Zechariah must have felt with Gabriel's announcement that they would have a son? The famous Gabriel was now standing in front of Zechariah. He's an angel. He has to be brilliant, beautiful, intimidating, glorious. On top of all this, he just told Zechariah the one thing he's been praying for decades, that he was going to have a son. What would have been your response to all this? Well, let's see what Zechariah's was. Let's read verses 18 through 23. Zechariah said to the angel, "How will I know this for certain? For I am an old man, and my wife is advanced in years." The angel answered and said to him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to bring you this good news. And behold, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day when these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their proper time." The people were waiting for Zechariah and were wondering at his delay in the temple. But when he came out, he was unable to speak to them, and they realized that he had seen a vision in the temple. And he kept making signs to them and remaining mute. When the days of his priestly service were ended, he went back home. When I read Zacharias' response, he almost sounds like he's having a conversation with a regular old Joe. Or maybe he's negotiating a contract. Please guarantee your side of the bargain. But before I get too unfair or beat up on him too much, God would tell me I've done the same thing to him. And to be more empathetic, think about what Zechariah had experienced. From the nation of Israel, when tribal identity and posterity and inheritance was entrenched in their entire history, he's now an old man, and he's without an heir. Decades of praying, perhaps becoming bitter and deciding that many years ago that it was just too late now, I can see where he might be coming from. You know, be still and wait on the Lord makes for a nice quote to hang on your foyer wall, but it can be very hard to do at times. So here's some more discussion questions for your group. When are you most likely to doubt God's plans or willingness to answer your prayers? What helps you to overcome your temptation to doubt God and whether or not He'll come through? When we are doubting God, are we possibly still stuck on our own plans versus God's? So God made Zechariah mute for disbelieving His message. But remember, God is outside of time and knew how it would play out. He knew that Zechariah would doubt. He knew that He would make him mute. He knew all this. And even Zechariah's doubt and punishment for his doubt seems to serve God's purpose. The people recognized that he had seen a vision while in the inner sanctuary, and his mutism served as a sign to the validity of the promise. He can't speak. I wonder if his silence gave him extra time to meditate on the experience and to ponder all that God was about to do in the life of their family and in the country. Let's read our final set of verses, verses 24 through 25. After these days, Elizabeth, his wife, became pregnant, and she kept herself in seclusion for 5 months, saying, This is the way the Lord has dealt with me in the days when He looked with favor upon me, to take away my disgrace among men. So God came through after what must have felt like a long time for Zechariah and Elizabeth. I imagine this moment must have strengthened their faith and ability to trust God more in all the rest of the areas of their life. But think about this also. They now realized that God's answer to their prayer for a child was actually a part of something much bigger than just making them into parents. They now realized that they were a part of God's big plan for Messiah. So here's some final discussion questions. Have you ever had God answer a prayer in a way that overwhelmed or humbled you? What did you do when the answer came? What are some ways that we can honor God when He does come through for us? 500 years of silence from God between Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament was now over. And like a builder announcing to the key people who need to know that the plans were complete and He's ready to begin building, God begins announcing to the key people what He's about to do and build. And just think, He's still building this today. It's amazing. And what a gift we've been given to be a part of His plans that He planned before time began. I hope you are all preparing to have a wonderful Christmas with your families. I know we're not getting to see everyone this year, but hopefully you have a few others to celebrate God's amazing gift with this year. God bless you all, and I look forward to being with you in 2021.